Well, hello and good morning to all of you from around the world. I want to welcome you to another edition to This Morning with Soulivity, broadcasting live from our studio right here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and on KMET 1490 AM radio in Southern California. Listen, my name is Brian Wesley Johnson, and I am so glad you're with us. I'm joined today by my very special friend and co host, Teresa Greco. Good morning, Teresa.
Good morning, Brian, and good morning, listeners. Mhm.
Well, listen, this is a fantastic day, a great day to get inspired. Um, Teresa, how was your week? How was your weekend?
It was great. I had an event that I got to speak at. It was a fashion style event, and so I
Oh,
got to
nice.
impart some words about empowerment and self-esteem and
Mhm,
self-confidence. And that, definitely we want to make sure that we're shining from the inside out, that we're beautiful
mhm.
inside and out, and making sure we're connected to that inner beauty. So it doesn't matter what we put on the outside, we're just radiating the awesomeness that we are.
Fantastic. I love that. Well, as you know, but our listeners don't know, I we just got back from a fantastic vacation in wonderful Jamaica Island. Jamaica, man. Bagwan, my brother, my brethren. Um, and it was fantastic. We had a great time. We went there for a dear family that got married. Sending congratulations again out to Shane and Yauska Williams. Oh, you guys were fantastic. Thanks for hosting such a fantastic event. And since it was in Jamaica, by the way, Teresa, this is going to be apropos because we are talking today about living your life authentically. And part of this is a story that I want to kind of begin today's show with in regards to this. And it's about Harry Belafonte, who's a wow, he's a very, very special person to me. He's one of my heroes.
Hmm.
And as most of you know, last week he transitioned at the age of 96.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he died last week. And um, if you are looking for a person or a person in life that kind of embodies what it means to live authentically every day, look no further than him. And so I was going to talk a little bit about him and then we'll get into our discussion today. Born in Harlem to parents from the Caribbean, a mother from Jamaica, see why this is why it's so apropos, and a father from the island of Martinique. Harry Belafonte was a fierce warrior for civil and human rights while becoming one of the century's greatest performers known worldwide.
Mhm.
He was also an EGOT holder for his Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony Award wins.
Wow.
Yeah. And there was something else that I didn't know that I think a lot of people don't know about him that shows the measure of this man. Did you know that he served in the U.S. Navy during World War II?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, he was also a veteran. So
Wow.
on top of all of the success, in terms of the decisions that he made about his life, may it be fighting for the rights of others that included himself, being a fierce ally of LGBTQ plus people. He was just this person that embodied who he was fully and completely. And so, as we begin today's topic, I just want you to remember his legacy, everyone, and what he brought to the world. In fact, he once said, "If I've impacted on one heart, one mind, one soul, and brought to that individual a greater truth than they had before I came, then I would say that I have been successful."
Beautiful.
Right? And so, again, we are talking about living your life authentically. And as part of this, we want to make sure that each one of you are engaged. So we want your questions, your comments, your thoughts. Please post them to our live feeds on Facebook or YouTube, and we will, get you into this conversation because we want to make sure that you are part of this. So, so as we begin this, more in depth, Teresa, what are your thoughts about this? I know you've been thinking about this a lot. What does it mean for you to live authentically?
So, this is something that is very much tied to my happiness journey that I probably shared on my show that people can catch weekly on
Right, right.
Thursdays
Hmm.
at 12 p.m., where I was living my life according to external expectations for who I needed to be. So trying to be the perfect mom, perfect wife, perfect daughter-in-law, perfect friend, perfect
Yeah,
employee, perfect everything,
right.
trying to please everyone around me and not honoring and respecting myself in the process. Wearing many masks. So, this is Teresa at work. This is Teresa at home. This is Teresa at play. This is Teresa, with these people. And this is Teresa in that place. And, having to put on an act in some cases where I wasn't, maybe I wasn't in the mood, but, putting that smiley face on and being who I thought I needed to be.
Yeah.
And the milestone of turning 40 was the one that basically had me taking a step back and reevaluating my life. And in that process, I realized that I had really ultimately lost myself in the living of my life, that I really didn't know who I was because I was so caught up in the external, so caught up in who Teresa needed to be for
Right.
everybody else. And that was really that milestone for me, was that wake up call.
Wow. 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 I'm glad that you said that because like for me, um I think once you've got to go through this process, right? You've got to go through a process to get to the point at which you understand more in depth about who you are. Um, I would say, and let me correct myself, more about the what of who you are, right? I think a lot of times, like my good friend Howard Caesar in his book One Plus One is One, talks about this difference between defining yourself based upon those things that society puts value on. So things like your job, your title, how much money you make, the car you drive, the neighborhood you live in, the size of home that you have, whether or not you're married, whether or not you have kids, right? And then how well all those people are doing in the same vein, right?
Yeah.
What school do your kids go to? What grades do they have? How successful are they? Is your wife successful? Is your husband successful? Is your partner successful? And all these different things. And that is not authenticity for me,
Wow. Wow.
right?
No, no, no. But we are conditioned to look outward, to look to our possessions,
Right.
position, titles, degrees, relationships, experiences for who we are, for our identity, our personalities, all caught up in those things. But
Right.
as you're saying, it's true. It's not the true essence of that, of which we are.
Mm-hmm. 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 I cannot agree fuller. There's a fantastic article that we're going to be pulling from today that is in Psych Central, and it's called Six Ways to Live Your Authentic Life. And I highly recommend that people go out and check this article out because it really gives some really cool ways of learning about authenticity. One part of it goes, being your authentic self can provide a host of well being benefits. Practicing self awareness, being intentional, and vulnerable can help you live an authentic life. And then it goes on, it says, we often hear the term being authentic bandied about, especially in terms of social media, where it's easy to quite literally filter out the parts of ourselves and lives that we're not so keen on. Others may try to people please and it inadvertently end up changing elements of themselves in an attempt to make others happy. But not living authentically can impact your mental and physical well-being in the long term. So, they start out by saying living authentically suggests that you're being your true self in relationships, that you're acting, behaving, and feeling in ways that reflect your values and internal states. So, isn't that what it's all about? I mean, I love that. I love that quote.
It's it's all about that. But I was, as many people are, we're all caught up in looking to the external for that
Yes.
validation,
Yes.
for that love,
Yes.
for that acceptance, that
Right.
there is a survival mechanism at play that from very young we become aware of, that if we act, in particular ways, people like us. If we do certain things, people love us, right? Because you're getting that validation from your family, your friends, that if you behave a certain way, then people like you more, people give you compliments, and you're like, oh wow, it seems that, if I'm a little bit skinnier,
Right.
people seem to think I'm more attractive.
Right.
If
Right.
I'm not so loud and so opinionated,
Right.
people seem to like me more. If I just kind of go with the flow instead of asserting, my own thoughts.
Absolutely.
If I don't ask too many questions and just seem to go with the flow, people like me more. So
Right.
it's like these events that we live through that, we put two and two together and we realize, if I become a person that is more like this,
Yeah.
people seem to really love me.
Right.
And that was where I was living, from that place, looking for love outside myself my entire life.
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
many people looking for love in all the wrong places
Right.
too, molding themselves, shutting things down, shutting things off, parts of ourselves, so that we can please those around us, because we seem to be getting those affirmations that people like us more when we're not who we really are.
Right. Right. I want to stay on this, right?
Yeah.
Before we go into like the importance of it and those kinds of things, I want to state on this idea of authenticity and really what it means in our lives, because I think we define kind of like maybe what people think is authentic. That's not what we're talking about, everybody. We're talking about a deeper, more in-depth and even spiritual idea of what authenticity is. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with more of This Morning with Soulivity, talking about authenticity in just a second. Hey there, this is Brian with Soulivity.com. I want to share some exciting news about our new Aspire Academy by Soulivity. Now, you probably want to know what the Aspire Academy by Soulivity is. Well, it exclusively connects you with people around the globe and who share the intense desire to improve themselves and create a better life for themselves today. There's classes, there's workshops, there's live events, and even more exclusively just for you. You see, I wanted you to have a safe space where you could grow, you can learn, and it would empower you in all aspects of your life, including your mind, your body, and your soul. So how do you get started? Well, it is so easy. First of all, the best part, joining Aspire Academy is absolutely free. Just click on the Join Now button, sign up, and begin your journey. As a special part of this invitation to you, there are some free courses that are available for you to try from our amazing roster of coaches and collaborators. It's our way of saying thank you for all of your support and being with us along our journey of expansion. I hope you enjoyed the Aspire Academy by Soulivity today. Start the process. Learn more about your passion, your purpose, and how to live a higher quality life. And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. We are talking about living your life authentically and what does that really mean and how to do it. Remember, we want your questions and comments. Please just post them to our live feed and we will get to them. We'll bring you right on into the conversation. So we're talking about, Teresa, we're talking about what does this really mean, right? I mean, we talked a little bit about like the edges of what inauthenticity means. But what about the reverse, right? Because I think a lot of times people get into what we talked about before, like the things, right? We measure ourselves against other people in terms of the things that they have. Like we just talked about Harry Belafonte and his life, the things that came to him in terms of prestige and all those things were a reflection of him and him living his life authentically. Not, oh well, I want to have a Tony Award, right? Or I want to have an Emmy Award. No, he was just living his life because he loved what he was doing, right? Um and so, I want to make sure that people really get this idea, this deeper meaning of being in tune with yourself, with a higher calling, with your passion, with your purpose, right? What does that mean for you? What does it mean to really truly be fulfilled, right? What are your thoughts?
I feel that as I reflect, because now going forward, that as I began saying, I've been on my happiness journey for 10 years now, that one of the commitments I made to myself was to live authentically. And so I had to really reflect on how I wasn't living authentically before and the type of things that I needed to change. So, one of the ways that I needed to change was I was, as you mentioned, one of the characteristics is like people pleasing, right? That people,
Yeah,
Teresa, I need you. Can you come and do this? Teresa, you need to be here.
right,
And I used
right.
to go. And there was a lot of shoulds and have tos, right? So those are the red
Hmm.
flag statements that if you're living very much like, well, I should do that because, these people expect that of me, or I have to do that because, it's part of my culture. But
Right,
there are many cultures that have particular expectations that, I think that younger generations, in some respect, find it hard to abide by and agree with because the world is moving forward.
right.
Yet, some of these traditions are tied to religion and culture. And so, how do you live, amongst your family and in a culture that has the particular expectations around the clothes that you need to wear, or
Absolutely.
particular practices, religious practices maybe that you need to integrate into your life that maybe make you feel awkward,
Hmm.
and so it's definitely tough. It's definitely tough. And I just felt that over and over and over again with all the shoulds and have tos that I was constantly disrespecting myself.
Mm. Wow.
I
Wow.
wasn't honoring myself. Ever when I didn't want to do it, but I was doing it for other people, it was like,
I'm so glad you just said that because I think that gets to like the heart of
mhm,
of how to live your life authentically, right? Are you doing things in your life that serve what you've been socialized to believe that you should be doing, right?
Mhm.
Or are you doing things that naturally fit, and the what's the word I want to
Mhm.
use here? The reflection, or the things that you attract into your life are of a higher level, right? And I don't mean monetarily, right? I mean like things like the things that we're talking about here, like you feel fulfilled, right? You're not looking outward for something to fill up a gap. May it be a person, a job, a profession, money, that you feel really, really good about who you are.
Mhm. Mhm. It does. It feels exactly like that.
Right.
That when you are living according to you,
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
does. It feels really good. And
Right.
when you're living according to them,
Right, right, exactly. Right, right,
it doesn't. It doesn't. You feel small.
right,
You feel like you don't have a voice.
right.
I had a lot of resentment that I
Mhm.
carried around towards other people, feeling like, "Oh, you're always making me do these things." And it was me
Right,
going along with it because,
right,
again, I was looking for that love, that if I spoke out against it, then I felt like people wouldn't love me. And I
right.
think that at the core, if we really dig down, there's a fear around the loss of love.
Mhm, mhm,
That is
mhm.
like our number one fear, actually. And even I heard this from Tony Robbins, that our number one fear is that people won't love us.
Mm, mm, mm.
So if it drills down, if you think about why are you living according to external expectations? It's because of that.
And as you were talking about this too, in right before break, because we'll go into why is this important. I'm thinking about, like, you start making your life, the inadequacies about your life, you start blaming on other people and other circumstances,
Mm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
if only the right man would come into my life, then everything is fine, right? Because it's these people out here that just aren't good enough. If
Mm.
I could only find a good enough person, then I
Mhm.
would feel okay in that area of my life,
Mhm.
right? Or if I could only find this right job, or the right if my boss would
Mhm.
act right, then everything would be fine, right?
I love this.
Right, and that's
Only
not,
everyone else was
yeah,
different,
right.
and I'd
That's
be happy.
you're
And I
looking
could
out
live
yeah,
I
you're
could live
looking outside of
authentically.
yourself for the
Mhm.
happiness part.
Mhm.
That's not living your life authentically,
Mhm.
right? So listen, we're going to take another quick break. Loving this topic today, Teresa. This
Mhm.
is so great. Let's talk about why this is important. I mean, I think it's intuitive, but let's get a little deeper in that. So we'll be right back with more of This Morning with Soulivity in just a second.
Hi there, Sheila Applegate here with some exciting news. I've joined the incredible Soulivity team as the host of the new Consciously Awesome live show, where I will be sharing insights to help you discover your full brilliance and claim the vibrant life you deserve. So tune in every Wednesday right here on Soulivity TV to join the fun, and remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a single episode. Have an awesome week, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame. Living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
And welcome back to This Morning with Soulivity. This is Brian Westley Johnson. I'm joined today by my beautiful co-host, Teresa Greco. And we are talking about living your life authentically, a fantastic discussion about this. Teresa, I wanted to kind of turn our conversation toward why this is important. Again, I think this is intuitive for a lot of people who hear this, but again, we're going deeper into what does this mean beyond like, relationships you may have or the kind of work you may do or the title and all this other stuff. I'm talking about like living your passion and purpose and how do you show up in the world doing that, right? So, Teresa, for you, what have you found to be the importance of living your life authentically?
I felt that I was constantly being disappointed.
Wow.
By the external world, and everything was always falling short. And so this ties into what you were saying just before the break about when we're pointing fingers at everything around us, outside of us, and saying, if only the circumstances and people outside of me were different, then I'd be able to be who I really am. And then I'd be able to have the happy life that I'm actually searching for. But it actually works that the outside is only ever a mirror and a reflection for what's happening on the inside of us. So the outside is actually mirroring what we're doing to ourselves on the inside. So all the people around me, when they were disrespecting me and they were dishonoring me, but it was because I was doing that to myself constantly by going along with everything that they wanted to do, and me trying to please them, and me trying to, never ruffling any feathers, and me trying to, looking for that love, as I said, and that acceptance and that status and that reverence and all of that, is that I was constantly disrespecting and dishonoring myself because I wasn't showing up as the person that I really was and who I wanted to be. And so this idea of looking outside of ourselves is not, it's just actually telling us what's happening on the inside.
Yeah. I like that. I think for me, I would agree with everything that you just said, because when you said that, you kept being disappointed, right? Which I think is the whole point, really, because I think the universe is always trying to, and you can say God, spirit, you can interchange these terms, but I think the universe is always trying to guide us back to what our authentic selves are. And that doesn't begin outside of ourselves. It has to begin within. So we get disappointed with outcomes because we're not starting from the inside, right? And letting that come forth and attract to us things that energetically match that. And so, like in the article that I just that we're using today on 6 ways to live an authentic life out of Psych Central, it makes sense to me that when you start living your life authentically, the first thing that happens a lot of times is you get better well-being and holistic health outcomes. So things like reduced symptoms of depression, You sleep better. If you've had headaches or migraines, that reduces, right? If you've had gastrointestinal kinds of things, those start going, those decrease or even go away. So it makes sense because now you're in alignment with who you are.
Yes, absolutely. We have that. It shows up in different aspects of ourselves, right?
Right.
When we're not in alignment with our truth, which I believe our truth lies in our spiritual self, right? That if we say
Agreed.
we have our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual self, that
Right.
our truth lies in that, who we
Right.
really are, and the qualities and strengths and superpowers all lie in our spiritual self. And so when we're not in alignment with that part, when the other, then it shows up, right? It shows up physically, as you said, as disease. I once heard that on a deep level, depression is us not living the life we really came here to live.
Right. Right.
And that
Right.
deep sadness that we feel, that we maybe, there could be, again, external factors could say, well, I don't have the job that I want, I don't have the home that I want, I don't have the partner that I want, like all this. We could try to point it out to all of those areas that you stated before, but it's because it ultimately, even that has nothing to do with that. It has to do that you had a particular life that you wanted for yourself.
Right.
You're not living it.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, and just to let everybody know this too, this isn't just about us as adults. This also has to do with us modeling for our children how to live authentically, because they're learning how to do that from us, right? And so there's studies around when adults live their lives authentically and pass that down to their children, right? That adolescents who feel authentic have more positive views of themselves, are less lonely at school, and are more satisfied with their friendships. Now, all of this makes sense because now they are in alignment with the who of what they of who they are as beings, right? They are aligned with the spirituality of themselves as they live a human experience.
Yes, and I'm going through that right now. I have 2 teenage children,
Which
and
are beautiful.
thank you. And my daughter will make comments that, oh, I have to go over and so we live very close to their grandparents, and so I have to go over and see, no. And I'm like, you don't have to go over if you can't.
Right.
But then there's all this guilt tripping, right? If they don't,
Right.
which I experienced, right? It's the negative feedback. As soon as you try to assert maybe what you want, you get negative feedback.
Right.
People don't like you start to argue, and then it's like they feel like they're letting people down, right? That's another characteristic. We feel like we're letting people down. And so I have tried, and I've said to her on different occasions, this is part of my story. And I said, I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to don't go when you don't want to go, and just let them know I'm busy, I can't come.
Right.
And that this is the key thing, Brian, that when we teach others, this is what we need to do. When we teach others how we want to be treated, how we want them to treat us, then we're not disappointed, because we're speaking up for ourselves and saying, listen, I am not, I don't accept that type of behavior from you.
Right.
I'm not going to accept those comments. I'm not going to accept those expectations. I'm not going to accept that you guilt trip me into behaving and doing certain things. I'm not, and being forthcoming about it. And that does require that we use our voice to do that. And I didn't use my voice. I just always went along.
Well, isn't that like part of the whole, like, children, especially children are to be seen, not heard,
Mm,
right? And so we don't teach our children to be authentic, right?
mhm,
And
mhm.
tell us what they're feeling, and letting that be okay.
Mhm,
And also showing them deeper meanings of like visiting your grandparents, right? Why do we do that?
mhm,
Right? Why do we go see them? Right? There's some
mhm,
things around that they may not understand. So you have
mhm,
a discussion about it. And if they choose at that point not to go, then that's okay. Right?
mhm,
Unless they're going to be home alone for a week or something like that. I mean, you got to be a responsible parent too. But I mean,
mhm,
there's discussion points and things that we're not having with each other, especially within our families, that I think that are so important to the overall overarching health of us
mhm,
as individuals and our children and our society as a whole. So,
mhm,
listen, we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, let's get into like some of the hows, like how do we get there? And
mhm.
and we'll go through a few of them with you, and help you move on this journey toward living your life more authentically every day. So we'll be back in just a second.
You can find all the Satonic products at our Go shop on Soulivity at go.soulivity.com now. Shop for beauty products, skincare, hair care. It is all there at the Go shop. Go shop Soulivity.
And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. We are talking today about living your life authentically, and wanted to get into some of the hows. How do we get from where we are today to, at least beginning the process of first understanding what it means for you to live your life authentically, and then practicing it on an ongoing basis. So, Teresa, what are some of the, like, give me a couple of the things that you
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
on a regular basis that keeps you grounded in that?
I would say the first step was definitely giving up trying to please
Oh, wow. Ooh,
everybody
I
else.
like that.
That I have to ask
Hello.
myself, right? Yeah. That when I'm requested to do something, I check in with myself,
Hmm.
right? Not don't just answer it, just, oh yeah, yeah, sure, without really, maybe thinking about and being mindful of your decision, whichever way you decide to go with it, is checking in and saying, is this something that I really want to do? Is this something that aligns with me? Or am I going to say yes to this person because I'm trying to please them?
Right.
So I
Right.
have to check in. And then if it's something that I don't want to do, I realize that I have the strength
Hmm.
to say, no, I'm not going to come, or not, either I'm not going to come, or maybe I'll come later, depending on my schedule, right? Maybe
Right.
I'll come later. But what this does is, as I said earlier, it teaches people how you want them to treat you, and not to expect particular things of you, right? Because
Right.
I was meeting everyone else's expectations and not my own. This says, listen, don't expect me every Sunday to come there.
Right.
Or
Right.
don't expect me to host dinner parties all the time. Or
Right.
don't expect me to just take on this extra work. Think about at work, right? With our managers and our colleagues, that person that's like, sure, I can do that. And now you have all this extra work on your desk,
Right.
all because you don't want to disappoint people.
Right. Right.
So people pleasing was the first thing that I needed to check in and not do if it didn't align.
Mm. I think that's a big one.
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
that's a really, really big one. Um, because I think that it's an immediate reflection that you can that you embody in your body, in within yourself,
Mm-hmm.
something that feels so uncomfortable that it kind of forces you to come to grips with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? um there's some of these great things that are in this article, How to Live Your Authentic Life, 6 tips from Psych Central. The first one that they have in here, I think that goes along with what you're talking about, Teresa, is embrace silence. I would also say embrace silence, and then in quotes, through meditation or through mindful practices, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in this one paragraph, it says, there's so much going on in our lives, and different perspectives come at us from different angles. So it can be easy to lose track of what makes you, and get swept along with the crowd. But
Mm-hmm.
setting aside quiet time to be with your thoughts can help you get back to your roots and recognize what's important to you. As Williams, who's the psychologist that's giving this information, he says muting the noise can be a great way to connect with yourself and gain clarity about your path. Amen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think, just to tag on another point, is
Yeah.
that when we do that, we're able to abandon our ego,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
the behaviors that are wrapped up in that. So
Right.
oftentimes when we are outward focused, we are living our life from that part of
Hmm.
us, our ego
Hmm.
self, trying to, buy the best clothes and drive the flashiest car,
Right.
and oh wow, look at me and look at my life.
Right.
And that the what you just stated, that point allows you to go inward and connect, instead of with your outer being, with your inner being,
Hmm.
and saying, does this align with the inside of who I am? And silence and meditation and mindfulness allows us to check in with that part, because ultimately we want our inner being and outer being to be the same.
Absolutely.
Outer being is just a reflection of our inner being. And so we
Absolutely.
have to constantly be checking in, and people are like, well, what's this inner being? Well, it is really, sometimes we call it our intuition, our gut instinct.
Hmm.
It is really your spiritual self, your soul self, the
Hmm.
energetic, infinite, eternal part of you. So when we go inward, we're like, oh, there's actually some wisdom.
Right. Right. Right.
There's wisdom in there that I could tap into, instead of looking for it outside.
Absolutely. As part of this, I love how we're coupling all this, because they actually do all these tips within this article couple with everything that you're saying, because they're supposed to be interconnected, right? Another one is learn to be vulnerable, right? And I think sometimes when we think of vulnerability, we think about vulnerability in the aspects of other people. And I would say, yes, absolutely, that's important. I would also say be vulnerable with yourself. There are going to be things, as Teresa, you've been talking about, that you're going to learn about yourself that may not be pretty,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that you've got to get
Mm-hmm.
through that part to get to the other side, which is the light, right?
Wow.
And so, you know, um, things that we come into awareness around how we've treated
Mhm.
ourselves or defined ourselves in a way that keep us doing things that don't serve us,
Yeah.
right? And
Wow.
that by being vulnerable, by opening up, and even going through, yea, do I walk through the shadow of death, I shall
Mhm.
fear no evil, that kind of thing, where you're going through the hard and scary things that you've been kind of hiding
Mm.
from other people and yourself, that you're kind of walking through that. So being vulnerable as well,
Oh my
I
God.
think is such a important aspect of this as well.
It's both of what you just said.
Yeah.
That looking at, those shadows, the stuff that we put into the closet, those skeletons
Yep.
that we've shoved away, and those negative aspects, as you said, the things that we should own up to, and to be more in alignment with the love, peace, and happiness that we are, that maybe we've adopted particular behaviors that we should let go of and admit to. That I think is definitely key. And then the other part to the vulnerability, which is very hard, is that to allow the world to see who you really are. There's so much fear there, because the question is, what about if they don't like me?
Yeah.
What if they
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
like who I really am?
Yeah.
And even me as an adult, I had some stuff come up this weekend, and I've been very vulnerable with some new people in my life. And because I'm trying to be authentic, which does require that you reveal the parts of these shadow parts
Right.
that come up for healing. They came
Right.
up for healing, and I had to say, this is what came up through this experience. The universe is like, Teresa, you need to look at this inside yourself.
Right.
And I had to reveal that this was the stuff that came up inside of me. And it is so scary, Brian, to say,
Yeah.
like, if I reveal these negative parts of myself, are people going to just say, oh, geez, I don't want to associate with her?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's hard. Being vulnerable is hard, but if ultimately, this is why it's worth it, is that if these people don't accept me for who I really am, with my good and bad,
Mm-hmm.
which is really not good. There's really no bad to us. It's just, that's just, we put a criteria,
Right.
on ourselves and everything. We live in a world of duality, so we call things negative and positive, good and bad, but there really isn't any of that. Is that if they can't accept me, like the raw me,
Mm-hmm.
even with my shadow parts, that are those really people that you want in your life?
Yeah.
Really ask yourself that, when you're molding yourself to be a particular way, but are these, if you were to show them who you really were and they were to reject you, then who are those people who really love you for
Right.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. I love what we're talking about here.
Mhm.
And when we come back, we'll get to some final thoughts from both of us as we close out this edition of This Morning with Soulivity. We'll be right back, everybody.
6 years ago, when I started Soulivity, my vision was to support everyone in improving their life through the discovery of their passion and purpose, so they could become the best version of themselves, to battle fear and ignorance, and create a better world today. Get inspired to live your passion and purpose. Visit Soulivity.com now.
And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. Teresa, I'll go to you for some final thoughts. We got just a few minutes here, but can you take about 30 seconds? I know. It's such a big topic.
Yeah. And so I want to say that ultimately, I believe that connecting with your spiritual self, with the truth of who you really are, and making a commitment to show up in the world always by checking in with your inner being and saying, is this in alignment with who I really am?
Yeah.
And then taking those steps on the outside that are a reflection of that.
Thank you for that. Listen, I'm going to end with final thoughts that I think that sometimes we don't think about when we talk about these different topics, and that is, listen, being authentic and living your life from that place can be very complicated. And if when it becomes so complicated that you need support, get the support that you need. Seek out some teachers, take a workshop, even go to therapy, go to a therapist that is connected into showing you how to navigate certain behaviors and feelings. Because again, I know that I needed that support long ago. And even today, I still seek out that support when I need it. So get the support that you need so you can live your best life today. Okay. And live that authenticity. Wow, Teresa, this has been such a fantastic show. It went by so quick.
So fast.
I know it's so rich though, right? I mean, there's so much to talk about, because I think it's where everything begins in terms of awakening to the power that lives within you.
Mhm.
And that's so connected to what we do here at Soulivity, which is about your passion, your purpose, and then creating a high quality life. And that we always say that begins with self-awareness. Well, that's what this is, right?
We're gonna have to need a part 2.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
because I feel like we didn't dive into that part. Like, what really, right? How do we tap into that passion and purpose? We can't unless we are authentic.
Absolutely.
So, yes, we're going to. I would like to have a part 2, Brian.
Well, I would like to have that too. So there we go.
Perfect.
Listen, everybody. Remember, we are here to serve. We are here to, empower you every single day. So remember to follow us on social media and join our mailing list by visiting the This Morning Soulivity site today. You can get access to exclusive content and even things like giveaways that are going to be coming up soon, which are going to be starting up in just a second. Listen, on behalf of all of us, I want to say thank you again for joining us on this great episode of This Morning with Soulivity. Thank you, Teresa, for being here as well. We hope that you come back and join us every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern for our live broadcast, or listen to 9 a.m. Pacific time on KMET 1490 a.m. for all of you on the West Coast. So until next time, thanks for being here. Keep on having conversations with passion and purpose, and create that high quality life today. See you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Authentically LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Authentically LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.